Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Blindspot. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break everything down. I love the basic premise behind this episode. It's kind of basically dealing with eco-terrorism is connected to one of Jane's tattoos. Well, it turns out it's actually connected to Rich, because way back in the day, Rich actually ran a scam. It's this dude named Jackson Fernwood, who would basically like, oh yeah, I'm some great environmentalist, and basically, essentially he created an artificial programming that would basically plagiarize and take certain things and kind of use it as propaganda. Basically, he was making these people think that he was using this money to deal with like, carbon emission type of stuff, as well as like replanting trees, stopping deforestation. But it's like, nope, he kind of used all the money for himself. But now subsequently that program of his has never stopped in that time frame, because he just moved on, just kind of forgot about it. But it was constantly sending out more and more propaganda. And one said person in this episode, the dude's named Daniel. I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but isn't that the same actor who plays Mr. Freeze in Gotham? I think so. I could be wrong about that. But he basically leads a group, an eco-terrorist group, all come about because of Rich. And I even love Rich kind of being like, no. I didn't start I didn't influence any eco-terrorist group. My program did. And he's like, okay, and now that I'm actually saying it out loud, that doesn't make it any better. So I just love that, because the dude was kind of like, oh, you're the one that started all this. Oh man, he's such a great man. The dude they called earlier, Luther, was like, oh, he's such a great man and stuff like that. And even Rich was like, I don't know this dude. I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. I mean, it's no surprise. I guess they don't, Rich doesn't catch too much flack for it, because it's like, yeah, we know you have a criminal history. I mean, granted, you did what you did, but he kind of feels bad about it and stuff like that. But still, it's kind of interesting. I love him actually going undercover and stuff like that. And he's trying to steal Daniel's phone, and he's touching Daniel. Daniel's like, I know exactly what you're up to. You have a reputation for seducing your followers. So the fact of the matter is, he's like, I'm not interested. Which is so funny to me, because it's like, he didn't catch you because that's probably such a real thing. He probably did seduce a lot of his followers and stuff in the past. Also, Daniel trying to assert himself, being like, oh, I'm not a follower anymore type of thing. I love that. And when he was actually trying to stop Daniel too, he was kind of like, they're like, we'll burn down the city of New York, kind of give it back to the trees. And like a tree will rise from, like a city or so will rise from the ashes of it all. And then you have Rich being like, wait, what? I don't think that really makes as much sense as you think it does. I don't really think that's possible. So that was kind of interesting. Essentially, their plan was to kind of spread white phosphorus in these drones to kind of burn the city down. And it's like, wow. And it's, once again, it's kind of crazy to think like, oh yeah, this was actually all started by Rich. Now, along all of this, there's a lot of other stuff that has to be brought up about this episode. One, the fact of the matter is, Violet apparently knows that Allie was looking into her. I guess she has connections in the U.S. Marshals that kind of looked that into her. Because what's interesting too, because I thought it was funny, because it's like she knew exactly what picture. Like, it's like, oh yeah, this picture was taken the moment I was meeting with you, which is kind of, I guess it's like the outfit you were wearing and just the specifics of the photo is kind of like, okay, like obviously it can only have been when I met with Jane. So that was kind of interesting. So Jane then was kind of like, okay, I know Kurt's behind it. And she's like, I could kill Kurt for you. But Jane was like, no. I still need him alive. Which I'm like, I guess this all comes back to the cure thing. It's because if Kurt's alive, like her chances of getting this cure are better. Because if he died, I don't know, things will get a little hairy. Because of his dedication to her, he will push like trying to find a cure. So keeping him alive will keep the team will be motivated, but him being around will keep them extra motivated, because he won't stop until a cure is found. So I'm guessing that's her justification for it. I think on some level there's part of her that's just actually afraid to kind of kill him, like the whole Roman kept telling her. She'll pretend like it isn't, but I think on some small percentage, I think it's more so the former, but I'm sure the latter of like having feelings for him to some degree on the inside, it kind of like stopped her. But nevertheless, and I love kind of the awkwardness between it, because like you can tell like Kurt is very suspicious because of what Allie kind of brought up last episode, and Jane's suspicious because she's like cutting her hair and she's kissing him, and it's like, oh, I want to feel like me again. It was like such a small little thing, and I thought it was kind of interesting. what was really interesting is she was like, oh, we should work with the CIA, talk to Keaton just because she wanted to get some information. And then she tried to be like, I want to see my mom again, try and interrogate her, get information. We interrogated her, but not, I didn't, blah, 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 the back and forth. I thought that was kind of interesting. It's like, oh, look at you. Are you trying to get him to take you there? It's like, no, you're just trying to find the general location. Him taking you there would probably like help, but I think probably if she went there and then something happened, like, her getting like Shepard getting busted out, it probably would have led to people being like, maybe Jane's behind. It's probably that type of situation, but all she needed was a location so Violet could help, so Violet could break in. So that's all she needed. But what I thought was really interesting was when she was like, oh yeah, like you owe me, Keaton, for basically, wasn't it like 2 months? Keaton was interrogating her and torturing her for between season 1's finale and season 2's premiere. I want to say it was like 2 months, but I could be misremembering. But the fact, it was so interesting because it's like, you know that? How do you know that? Because obviously you don't have access to Jane's memory, so how do you know that? Like, did Jane secretly have a diary where she has all this written down? I guess it was official stuff, like Jane being arrested and being held by the CIA. So I guess like in that time frame, she looked up any like records about Jane and she found that. Maybe it came up in conversation in between season 3's finale and now. Like, I don't know, because it doesn't seem like something you'd bring up. But to be fair, maybe some situations like, oh, we got to work with Keaton again. I still haven't forgiven him for the time he tortured you. Remember that? Yeah, sure. I can't believe he did that to me. So I don't know. And that kind of got Keaton to be like, okay, gave her basically the rough direction. Because it's like, oh yeah, it's like half a drive's way. And it was like, okay, so now we know the ballpark. So any CIA black site within that ballpark of half a day's drive away is going to. So that was kind of interesting. And then the whole Keaton getting shot kind of surprised me. I was like, is she going to wait until someone's away and then she's going to kill Keaton because she doesn't need him anymore type of thing? But then again, it's like, why go through all that trouble to do that anyway? I don't know. There's just part of me that was wondering about that. But he didn't die. He's just in an induced coma, which they're just not sure he's going to make it or not. Which is like, Jane still got what she wanted in the end. So what I love, the tie into all of this is the fact is, like, obviously there's that treatment she was trying to become a part of and everything. There's only like a small % chance that she could be a part of it. But what I find so fascinating is like when you see her look at Kurt, I think there's a part of her that's actually bothered because I think there's a part of her, even as Remy, that's scared. Like, she legitimately could die. And I think that terrifies her because at the end, she's like, I thought this would actually work. And it seems like she's playing into it and she holds on to Kurt and she kind of closes her eyes. And part of me is like, I don't think that's her playing a role. I think that's her legitimately feeling good in Kurt's arms because he's there holding her, comforting her, because she actually is scared to die. Because she talks about like, oh, I want so much to do, but there's so much I want to do, which is like, yeah, I'm sure there is with your evil plotting all over the place. So I'm like, that's what I chalk that up to. But I think legitimately she was actually kind of felt good. Like I say, it seems like in certain moments you almost feel like you see her almost kind of like being a little compassionate when it comes to the whole Kurt situation, because like, I guess, when she was Remy, she didn't experience a lot of that, like someone loving her like that. So I think it's a complicated situation, whether she'll admit it or not. I believe it to be. I've always believed it to be. But what makes this all interesting is the fact is that Kurt had asked Patterson to look into Violet, but he kind of backs out because for him, I guess the guilt of being like, man, how could I doubt Jane? She's going through what she's going through and I'm up here paying attention to all that stuff like that. No matter what she was like, Allie was probably right. Allie said this about like, oh, Jane not acting like herself, but it's like under these circumstances, how could I blame her? And was like, I should, not have asked you to look into it, but then finds out, oh, Violet's actually a bad person. And it's like, okay, so now I'm back to being suspicious again, because now you can tell he feels even more manipulated. I mean, that was kind of the whole point, was kind of like Jane to Remy trying to get him back under control. So I am so interested to see what Kurt's move is going to be when this guy circles back around. So, and then the other craziness that went down this episode was the whole Tasha and Claudia / Reed situation, which that resulted in a lot of interesting things. Tasha trying to get Reed to give up the password. He's like, okay. EATSH. It's like, okay, that's pretty good. But then like Claudia threatening him and everything like that, then being put on a time frame by Madeline. So Tasha, you can definitely tell, tries to like push the narrative in a different direction to kind of make it seem like she has ulterior motives for like why she's doing this. It's like, oh yeah, the fact in the well, not ulterior, but her ultimate motives are the fact is, oh, the CIA burned me. And he's like, is that really all this is about? It's like, no, I realized there was corruption everywhere. The fact in the matter is NYPD, FBI, CIA, it all stayed the same on that corruption angle. It's like, even look at you. You're up here saying like, trying to understand me and stuff like that. It's like, what about all the bad stuff you've done? The whole watching Jones bleed out situation, hiding your drug problem and stuff like that. It's like Tasha attacking him on a personal level just because she needs to make it look real in front of Claudia, I think. She even goes to the point, he was like, do you even love me? Was any of that real? She's like, yeah, I've always loved you. Does that make it feel bad? I think she was answering that truthfully. I think there was probably always a part of her that did love Reed, even when they were just like best friends and stuff like that. Even before like she caught feelings for him, when he caught feelings for her. Like I think even before that. And so it turns into the situation of not really knowing what her angle is in that regard. Like I guess it is like I guess it is because she does want Reed to not feel bad about the whole situation, because it's like, if I can make him feel a certain way about me, like she knows that pushing things this direction, there will be no, like even if this ends up all being part of some grand plan, which I'm sure and strongly believe it all to be, like she just, if there's any damage irreparable between her and Reed, then so be it. It has to be, she's willing to sacrifice so much to kind of get this situation kind of taken care of. So I guess it's also ensuring that Reed won't try and save her, because if he's trying to save her, that means like he's going to put himself in more danger. So I guess that's her kind of putting a nail in that immediately. Because what was interesting is the fact is that Claudia put a gun to Tasha's head. They forced his hand. It's hard to say whether she would have pulled the trigger or not. I think she kind of would have, because even if it meant, like, even if there was some part of her that still trusted Tasha a lot, there was a part of her that was probably just like, well, if it means getting what I need, I don't care. I don't need Tasha alive. I mean, Madeline only needs really one of us to bring her the information, so who cares, right? I mean, to be fair, if she had did that, I'm sure Claudia would have probably killed Reed too, just because it's kind of interesting because you left him alive, but I guess him being the FBI director is kind of like, oh yeah, well no, yeah, the FBI director. No, he's not. I forgot he's not. White is, right? Isn't that his whole, ain't that the position? What is Reed's position now? I'm like severely messing that up right now. I do apologize. But the fact of the matter is, with Reed's position of like, I guess he's more useful being alive in that regard. Because I feel like Claudia would normally be the one to kind of take him out. But it's like, it didn't take Tasha convincing her. It's just kind of like, oh, we bounced. We got what we want. I guess there's nothing that can legally tie this all to Madeline anyway. So who cares in that regard? So, which that's an interesting thing all on its own too. The fact of the matter, well, Tasha says a line of like, I don't work for Madeline. Like, obviously in the context of the situation, it's like, oh, she's trying to distance herself from Madeline. But I think she might have been kind of giving a wink and nod to Reed to tell her like, that's not what the situation is. Because later on, she kills Claudia. Well, because Claudia is very suspicious of her, because it's like, oh yeah, there's a whole situation that went down with oh yeah, Reed being like, oh yeah, I gotta offer you a chance out of this situation, because the fact of the matter is, I know you're scared of Madeline. It's just a look on your face. It's like Blake was so in control, but then Madeline's this uncontrollable wild card variable. So that turns into a situation of like, hey, I'll cut you a deal, which Claudia is like, oh, kind of interesting, because now this puts a perspective of like, hey, how can we ever trust you? Because there's always a chance you might take this deal. But then Tasha twists it and is like, the fact of the matter is, the moment I enter that FBI building, I most likely won't ever see the light of day again. Isn't that right? And Reed kind of looks down and away from her because he knows that's true, that he is kind of manipulating her in that regard. Now, using that information, I'm guessing Tasha didn't want to keep Claudia around because Claudia would have reported all this to Madeline and it just would have been a complicated situation. Like, she couldn't take the chance that Claudia might talk about the complications around like the way Tasha kind of has a soft spot when it comes to Reed, that he's kind of her weakness and stuff like that. So I'm assuming that, not unless we end up finding out that Claudia really was undercover and stuff like that. It's kind of interesting because that's the second time that's happened. Because let's not forget, the same thing happened. Wasn't his name Vincent? It's I'm blanking on it. It's the actor who played 3/Marcus on Dark Matter last season. That actor popped up. Was it Anthony Lemke? His character, wasn't it Vincent? Like how Roman to that whole situation, to gain Crawford's trust. So is it the same thing in this regard, or was she really a cop? I feel like it's the former of like, oh no, like Tasha just manipulated. It's like, oh yeah, Claudia was definitely a bad person. She wasn't undercover, but there's always a chance she could have been, but I doubt it. Like, cause she's like, oh yeah, I have all these files and stuff like that, and like all this proof. It's like, how did you get that so quick? Oh, it's like, oh, this is a dossier saying that she worked with the UK and stuff like that. I'm like, is that who you actually been working with? Like, have you been working with the UK in some regard? Like, you're burned by the CIA, but I guess you could, I guess, is there any reason why you wouldn't be able to kind of work with any other government? Like I said, not unless Claudia really was, but I don't know. That was still brutal. Just kind of like, oh yeah, I got something else to show you in the trunk. Bam, bam, bam. Toss her body in there. Madeline's like, oh, I was so worried that it was going to be you. I was so sure it was going to be you who was the mole, or, being the cop. But it's like, yeah, your loyalty won't go unrewarded. And it's kind of like, okay. So it's definitely gotten to that point where Reed was kind of warning that Tasha would go past the point where there's no return. And it's like, up to this point, she hadn't actually killed anyone. Obviously, up to this point, Madeline had killed everyone. This is the first time Tasha's kind of taken blood. Like, to be fair, if Claudia ended up being a bad person, you can make justifications for it, which I'm thinking that's why Tasha did it, because I think that proves it even more so, because it's like, Tasha did it without, she did it like that. So it was to keep her own cover, but also kind of draw any suspicion away from her onto Claudia. So there's that. So, and it also makes it so that, Madeline trusts her more, because it's like, oh, not only did I get rid of your right hand, now you trust me more, but it's also because it turns out the person you turn to be your right hand is actually kind of undercover. So, like I said, it's just interesting developments all around. Obviously, the plans are moving forward to bust Shepard out of the CIA prison, and that's definitely going to be interesting. Obviously, like I brought up earlier with the whole Kurt being suspicious, and obviously he's going to keep a lot of his suspicions to himself, because I highly doubt he's going to confront Jane about all this. So it's really interesting to see how this all plays out. Like I said, it's interesting because you have the remnants of Sandstorm kind of doing her thing while Madeline's doing her own thing. Makes you wonder in any shape or form, would that collaboration ever come together like that? We'll have to see, but that might kind of be something they might be heading towards with this season. You never know. Like I said, it's just kind of two evil fronts are happening, which it's never happened before, because it's all been one evil front. Well, I guess arguably could say the same thing about Roman's situation. Everything was about taking down Crawford, so it was all towards one goal, even last season. It kind of always has been, but it's like it's two separate fights on two fronts. Like, the team is only aware of one front, because even Kurt hasn't told anyone else about his suspicions. The only person that knows about it is Allie. So, like I said, we'll just kind of have to wait to the next episode to see how all this, what the next episode has in store for us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.